My name is Staff Sergeant Jonna Miller. I've been in the Air National Guard for about 7 years. And this is Jerry Nelson, and he'll tell you a little bit about himself when he speaks, but we're kind of co-teaming it up here today. And my almost master's is in marriage and family therapy. I just have an internship and 2 classes left. But as you can see up there, my husband was also deployed. He was deployed with Wisconsin Army National Guard, and he was an infantryman. So I definitely can relate to a little bit of what you're going through as well. So we're going to talk about it, and we're going to give you hopefully some good strategies and just good coping skills for what you're going through now and what you're going to go through when they come home. And I kind of like to preface it by saying we don't say any of this to scare you or anything. It's just more to have healthy expectations. As I said, we were from a Wisconsin unit, and we didn't have any of these family readiness academies, which you're having today, or my soldier did not go to like a 30-day training after he came home, a 60-day training, which I just believe with all my heart would have been so helpful for him and our marriage to more normalize it. You know what we're going through, it's normal. It's a normal reaction to what we have endured and what you are enduring right now. And you just made an appointment of missing 2 anniversaries, and that was one of actually the biggest processes for me. I had a professor who lost her husband, or actually it was her fiancé. He was going in for a normal procedure surgery. She was 27, he was 27, and it was a normal surgery, and he died during the surgery. And I was talking to her afterwards, and she's like, you know, the death was really hard, but it was all the small deaths afterwards that were really hard. It was the anniversary that I didn't get to share with him, the birthday party that he missed my birthday, or going to the coffee shop that we always used to go to. And I think that's part of the process for us as well, is grieving those losses of now it's going to be 2 years. And sometimes we don't really take the time to grieve not having those moments together. And my husband and I were only married a couple months before he left. And I just remember going to a wedding where it was our best friends were getting married, and he was supposed to be the best man. And so here we're in this wedding, and you know, just seeing everybody else's life move forward, and just feeling like mine was at a standstill.
Everybody happy, and them there as a couple.
Yeah.
And,
you know, doing what I had dreamed about doing. Yeah. And so when he came home, I kind of had stuffed a lot of those emotions, or didn't realize I needed to process the loss of those moments with him. So it is a grieving process, and we just want to talk to you a little bit about that today, but also about, you know, some realities when they come home. And as that slide says, one battle over, a new one to begin. And that kind of caught me off guard, because as you can see in that, sorry, we got a little excited.
I can do that.
In the slide before that, I'm kind of looking up at him kind of dreamy-eyed, like, ooh, my soldier's home, you know, we're going to live happily ever after kind of thing. And as you can see in that picture, he's not really looking at me. And, you know, and you know where he was looking? He was looking right back at Iraq. He was looking at soldiers around him. And that's what I would hear for the next 6 to 9 months was, I just want to go back, I just want to go back, I just want to go back. And I tell that to people, and they're kind of shocked, but when I tell it to people who've already gone through it, they know exactly what I'm saying. And it's kind of like what Colonel Gertis was talking about. Like, over there, it actually can be pretty simple. You know, what they're dealing with is stressful, but it's pretty much the same job every day. They know their mission, they know what they have to wear. The food's all made for them, their laundry's all done for them, which is not necessarily always done at home. So just things like that can be pretty simple over there. And they come home, and they have all these decisions to make. Like, my husband had to decide where to go to school, what kind of job. You know, going in an interview can be like paralyzing to a soldier, where this uniform represents security. So just like some of those were the things that we struggled with. And not everything today will be your story, but hopefully some of the things we share you'll be able to take away and use for your marriage. So we're just going to do a little bit of a reality check, and since it's such a small group too, if you have anything to add into it, please feel free to ask questions, or just share your story as well, or your experience with this. So one of the myths that couples tend to believe a lot is that it's just going to be like old times. like, and that's kind of grieving that loss, but has anybody moved since your soldier left? Any new jobs? Any new grandchildren?
Deaths. Been dealing with death. That's the hardest part. When he got activated, and he left November 1st, and my mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer in December. And that was about the hardest part, was dealing with that. And then we're over the road truck drivers, and I was still driving over the road. And then I was dealing with my family at home, having my mother lived with us as well. And then my sister and sister-in-law were fighting over, well, I have to take time off from work. Well, I have to take time off from work to take the appointments. And I'm like, okay. And then my daughter quit her and was doing it in between as she could. She quit her job and she was overwhelmed with her bills, so she went back to work. I took my truck in on February 28th. I said, I can't keep up with my truck payments and take care of my mother. And I went home. And yeah, it's been a hard thing, and she died May 3rd. And then the day she died, or the day of her funeral, I got a phone call from Iraq. My husband calls me. How you doing? How's mom doing? Now you want to talk about falling apart? I was wrecked. What do? You know, you just, sorry, honey, mom died. I'm going to the funeral. I got to leave. Yeah, and yeah, there's some pretty difficult times. I keep telling him now, I says, you know what, I haven't dealt with that yet. When you get here, I'm going to be a wreck. So, yeah, it's been some rough times.
Well, last year, my grandpa was real sick, and he did pass away the day before Thanksgiving. But my husband, when he was home in November, knew of it, and so they were actually going to say goodbye.
So he got sick.
Yeah, his grandpa knew that he probably wouldn't be here when Mike got bad, well, in March at that point.
Yeah. See, that's what they talked about.
He was upset and crying, but, because of it. And we have a neighbor who has cancer too, and he about the same thing, knowing that,
he might not be here when it comes to time. Yeah. Yeah. And like my mother, I brought her home. I brought her home until the end. And my mother was taller than I was. Never a big woman. Taller than I was. She was 5'10". By the time she passed away, I could pick her up like a child. Like cradle her like a little baby, because she was nothing but a skeleton. Yeah.
So these are obviously huge things you've had to deal with, but not necessarily been able
To scream about?
yeah, or to have that, your partner, who you've had for 14, 15 years before that, to be there and lean on. So it's just been you. So obviously during that time you probably did gain some strengths, but you've also changed because of it. So just realizing that you have changed, your family dynamic, your family tree has changed. And so both of you and your husband are probably going to have to grieve some of that when he comes home.
Well, too, when he comes home, they're single. You might as well say right now, they're single. Because also, I'm a single parent.
Yeah, exactly.
We're used to being separate, not together.
Yeah, and that's one of the points we're going to talk about a little bit later. So that's a very, very good point. The next point up there is talking about how we kind of appear perfect in our memories. Do you have any pictures of your spouse up in your house? Yeah. What's one of your favorite pictures of you and your wife?
When we went to my brother-in-law's wedding. She was in the wedding, and we just took a picture.
So that was a really good memory. She probably looked beautiful.
Yep.
And I'm guessing she might have the same picture, or a picture of that wedding, and wherever she's living over there.
Nope.
No pictures?
We only have one copy of that picture.
Oh, well, another picture? Does she have a picture of you two together?
Probably.
So my point is not so much the picture, but kind of in that picture, that's what we remember. We remember the good times together. We remember, most of the pictures are when we look halfway decent and everything. So we can kind of idealize those memories in those pictures and forget that when they come home, sometimes they're ornery. Sometimes when they wake up, they don't look that good. Sometimes they leave their shirts on the floor.
Oh no, he knows.
Knows where to hang.
Oh yeah, he knows where a hamper is.
He should meet my husband. Yeah. So it's just, for me, that was one of the shockers. We're not perfect. He's not perfect. And for my husband, it was kind of a shocker because we had idealized those pictures for so long, and idealize, that's my hero at home because what she's going through. That's my hero over there because what they're going through. And so you can kind of put them up on a pedestal and forget that they're human as well. So we just kind of like to remind you of that. And that nothing is going to ever be as hard as being separated for 18 and now even longer for you, 22 months. And again, I don't say this to scare you, but just kind of to do a little reality check. My husband's been home over a year now, and I would say that it's been the hardest part of this whole process. It's definitely gotten a lot better, but studies show that it takes anywhere from 6 to 18 months to really readjust and kind of find that new normal Colonel Gertis was talking about, kind of establish.
Well, look how time it took us to adjust at the beginning.
Yes,
it was probably what, like the time.
Yeah.
At the beginning.
Yep, and you know, even when you first get married, they kind of say that first year of your marriage is like the most important because it kind of sets the routines, the foundation, things like that. So it's almost, I mean, it's not the same thing, but you can kind of relate it to that. So it's just a time thing. And a lot of people just expect it to jump back in, it's going to be like old times. So, you know, part of my husband and my process has been actually finally going to see a counselor. And I say that, you know, very excitedly because it's not that our marriage is falling apart, it's just how much our marriage is worth to us, that we're willing to, you know, work on our communication skills. And I'm going to school for marriage and family therapy, and I wear this uniform. And it took me a long time to reach the point where I was okay to say, you know what, we need help, we need to work on some things. So it's kind of like that last point, that we made it through this without help, and we can make it through the readjustment without help. But we don't want you to feel like you have to do it alone. We want today we want you to know every resource there is out there for you to get help if you need it. And just to know that we're here to go walk with you through the process. So, you're right up there, it's kind of like everything has changed, and we're still not perfect, the points I already talked about. Next, we're going to watch a short little video clip, and it's a little graphic at one part, but it's just an example of one couple's struggle after he got home. So.
Third and final round, upcoming action from the second. Oh, here we're going to take a look at.
Babe, I'm going to bed. Are you coming?
That inside kick that Remy,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'll be there shortly.
Definitely got his attention.
You say that every night, and when I go to bed and wake up 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, you're not there. Please come to bed.
Just let me finish watching the rest of the show and I'll be there, okay?
And final round of our K1 battle at the Bellagio. Remy Bonjaski in the blue trunks on the left of your screen. Michael McDonald, he knows how to win in Vegas, on the right of your screen. Mike, how did you score that last round?
I've got them both to McDonald by a half a point. Although the last one was closer than the first one. He's taking Bonjaski to school.
Robert!
Jake, I'm hit.
We gotta get you to a medic!
Babe, are you okay? Jake, are you okay? Jake! Jake, are you okay?
I'm fine.
Babe.
I'm fine.
Jake.
I'm fine.
Jake, you keep having these nightmares, and you don't talk to me. Something happened over there.
I'm okay. I'm alright. I got it under control.
I can't help you unless you talk to me about it. Please talk.
I said I have it under control. Now leave me alone.
Good morning, Julie. So where's Jake? He couldn't make it again?
No, I couldn't get him to come. But just so you know, it's not the church. He's been pretty much avoiding everyone since he got back.
Really? Well, how about Robert? Has he seen him lately? You know he's back. I heard he just got out of the hospital recently.
He's seen him once.
Only once? I thought Robert and Jake were really close.
They are close. I think it's hard for Jake to see Robert. It reminds him of what happened over there, and I think he blames himself for that. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm holding up the line.
Julie, you have my numbers. Give me a call, okay?
I'm Jerry Nelson, and I'm a marriage and family therapist in La Crosse, Wisconsin. But I'm also a military family life consultant, and I work out of Fort McCoy. And so I work with troops as they're mobilizing out as well as when they come back. And in between that time, I also call military families as well as soldiers when they come back, and just to see how they're doing. So this would be an instance of where I might call and say, how are things going at home? What was your initial reaction to that little video clip?
Reaction?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he's using alcohol to hide?
Yeah, did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What else?
Just a lack of communication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do you think that he was coping with his, he was using the alcohol, but what was he really doing there? Hiding? Yeah, maybe pushing it aside. In one of the academies, we had the privilege of having somebody who had come back from Iraq, and they were sitting in the back, and the wife made a very good comment. Do you remember that? And she was saying, a lot of things happen downrange, and it isn't that, she looked like she was being rejected, right? And it wasn't so much, and the wife in real life said, it isn't that he's rejecting me, it was that he was protecting me. And in a sense, that's what Jake was doing there. He had a lot of stuff that was going on, and consciously or unconsciously, he's really protecting his wife as well. What are some other things for the wife? What do you think she was feeling? Rejected? Feeling alone? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe kind of helpless. What can I do? Jake, let me in. Jake, let me in. Mm-hmm. So what we're going to do is and Jonna's already started talking about this, is that we're going to try, and this is the extreme. This is really the extreme of what can happen. But we want to give you some coping strategies that are effective, not only in the extreme, because it's a continuum of when the soldiers come back and how they react. For some of them, they do just fine. For others, they might need a little bit more help. And so we're going to give you some coping strategies, and Jonna's going to talk a little bit about having a new mission.
So basically what we're going to kind of talk to you today is in a little bit of military terms. We're going to talk about having a new mission. I know that you might be sick of the military, but when your spouse comes home, we're teaching the same class to them, like 30 days after they come home. And when I tell them to get a new mission, they'll understand what that means, that they have a new mission. And so right now in Iraq, they obviously have a family that they have to take care of and look out for. It's their family. Right now it's their support. But when they come home, they need to kind of let go of that family and remember, like, there's a new family waiting for them to take care of them or to be with them. But also the challenge is for us back here, for you back here, to let them back into that circle. And sometimes it's easier said than done. It's kind of with the expectations. Colonel Gurris' wife, Mrs. Gurris, could not wait to hand that baton off. Other people, other spouses are the opposite. And you know what? They want to hold on to that because they've had this routine for now, it's going to be 22 months for you, and it's worked out just fine.
And then
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Disrupt the routine. Again, kind of like the whole canoe it. You know what? I don't want my canoe to tip it again. It's fine just the way it is. So, but that's going to be your process, is letting them back in. It might just be sitting down and talking about, okay, before you left, you paid finances. Do you still want to pay finances, or should I still do that? One family, it was the 14-year-old son was mowing the lawn, and that used to be Dad's form of relaxation. So he comes home, and the 14-year-old is mowing his lawn. So is the 14-year-old still going to mow the lawn, or is that going to be dad's responsibility? So just renegotiating some of those roles is going to be a challenge as well. And just to refocus your mission towards reconnecting. So we're going to give you 5 survival skills on how to do that. And again, just feel free to share anything while we go through this. So I'm going to hand it back off to Jerry.
One of the, I tend to wear a couple of different hats, and one of the things that I also do is I'm an adjunct instructor for the UW Wisconsin as well. So I'm used to giving assignments. So here's your first assignment. At the top of this slide, you have copies of it. Would you just write down the 2 words, love map? Write down the 2 words, love map. We actually already started to talk about love maps. Or how about a map? You know that a map is just a representation of the territory. It's not the actual territory. For instance, Jonna asked you if you had pictures in your house of your loved one. That's a love map. And we actually have love maps in our head of what the relationship is like. Now, it's been a bit of a blow because now, as Chaplain Morris said, the finish line has been pushed down. It's now into the summertime. So what are we going to do with that extra time that we have? Well, one of the things that you can do is you can add more detail to the love map. As you go out and you're going to go someplace, do you want just a little sketch on a napkin on how you're going to get there, or do you want a AAA map that has more detail? Okay? For me, I want more detail. And the more detail you can add to that map, the more accurate it's going to be. And so we're going to add some detail to the love map that you have inside of your head. And you want to know how the experience has been for your spouse. But now, one of the things that I get to do at Fort McCoy is when soldiers come back, I get to do a briefing with them. And I'll tell them the same thing, this first point. Ask your spouse what the experience was like for them. It's kind of natural for us that when our military personnel come back, we're going to ask that question, what was it like for you? But oftentimes, they forget to ask about what was the experience like for you back home. One family that I called, mom answered the phone, dad had been deployed, he was still in Iraq. And I asked her, how are things going for you? How are you adjusting? And she said, well, we have a 14-year-old son who now considers himself the man of the house. And when my husband deployed, he didn't get a chance to change the drippy faucet in the kitchen. And so my son one day decided he was going to do that. Mom was at work. But being a 14-year-old, he didn't know you had to shut the water off before you take a faucet apart. And so then it started spraying all over, and he panicked. And it was an older home, and underneath the sink was not a shutoff. About that time, Mom came in, and there was water spraying all over it. She didn't know where the shutoff was at. And they ran around the house trying to find the shutoff. And by the time they got it shut off, there was an inch of water on the kitchen floor. And so now they had to replace the kitchen floor. But they did get a new faucet, and the son did that. And so I asked the mom, I said, so are you going to tell your husband about this experience, next time that you talk to him or email him? She said, no. He has a lot of things going on downrange. She didn't use the word downrange. But I'm not going to let him know about that. Now, do you think that son and that mom, do you think that was a little stressful for them? That was an experience that they went through. And when Dad comes back home, do you think Junior's going to be a little bit proud that I changed the faucet? Sure, he's going to be a little bit proud of that. And what's going to happen, though, if Dad just kind of blows that off? It's going to be kind of shattering for that young man as well. And so I tell the soldiers when they come back, you need to realize that there's experiences at home that you might not even be aware of. And so at the appropriate time, after you've had some space, you need to ask about those kinds of things as well. See, it goes both ways, not only for the soldiers, but also for us that are still back home here. We have to listen to what was difficult. What was difficult at home? What was difficult when you were downrange? Maybe, and you might be surprised, maybe the most difficult part for them would be boredom. Maybe they're already telling you that. You know what? We just sit around forever. And then all of a sudden we have a mission and it's over, and then we sit around again. There's a number of different things. that you'll find that are difficult for them. This giving each other space and time to adjust. When I do briefings with the soldiers when they come back, I'll tell them, when you were in Minnesota, you had stressors like getting to work and getting the snow plowed, and we have more snow on the cross than you have here. A number of different things, and you have a set of coping mechanisms in order to handle that stress. And then all of a sudden, we took you down to Fort McCoy or Shelby or someplace, and then shipped you out to Iraq. And now all of a sudden, you have a whole new set of stressors and a whole new way of coping with that. Now, physiologically, in order to cope with that, your brain actually changes. The nerves and the hormones and the chemicals in your brain actually change in order to be able to in order to handle that stress. And then boom, 24 hours, we have you back in Minnesota again. Quite literally, your brain is still down in Iraq or Kuwait or Afghanistan or wherever it was that they came from. And they can't make that adjustment that fast. And so my motto is, and that's what I'm known around Fort McCoy, is go slow. You need to give space. You need to go slow in order to make that adjustment. And I actually give them permission to be couch potatoes for a while. Take it easy. Let that adjustment come. You need to adjust to your family. You need to adjust to your new environment. And then as family, on the other side, we need to be able to do that as well. We need to give them some space. We need to be able to let them adjust. We want to lean on each other's strengths. You know, we have these strengths. So here's your second assignment. I want you to write down 3 strengths that your spouse has. Write 3 strengths down. And who would share one of those strengths? What did you write down?
I put down knowledge, compassion, and fortitude.
Knowledge, compassion, and fortitude. And have you told her that you really appreciate that?
Yes.
Good for you. Good man. What did you ladies put down? Give me just one. You still working at it?
I don't feel bad though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's what I tell the soldiers when they come back. So, you know, when you get back home, we need to play tag with our spouse. Of course, they think that's really a great idea. And I said, no, this is the kind of tag I'm talking about. You need to have an attitude of thankfulness. That's T. You need to have an attitude of appreciation. That's A. And an attitude of gratefulness. That's G. So you play tag. You need to have that for the family that was at home while you were gone. You're going to hear a lot of gratefulness and appreciation and thankfulness from people around you coming back. That's that war hero that can happen. But as soldiers, you also need to show that to your family as well. So you need to play tag. That's leaning on each other's strengths. Boy, I just really appreciate that you handled all of the finances while I was gone. And I appreciate that you tried to keep that truck payment going. Even though maybe it didn't work out the way we wanted it to, I'm just really grateful that we made it as far as we could. See how that works? Okay. Can we go to the next one?
You want to tell him that?
Yeah. You want me to tell that? I'll tell
That
him
would really be nice. I'd like to hear that one just once.
Yeah.
No, what I get out of him is I ship the guys baked bread.
Oh, wonderful.
And they like their zucchini, they like the banana breads, and they
Sure.
cookies and the bars and stuff.
Yeah.
I get a lot of thank yous for, and even from the guys in the office because he's sharing them.
Yeah.
Don't hoard those. That's to share with the
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I get thank yous for that.
Well, and they're going to hear it from me again when they come back, because if they come back through Fort McCoy, I'll be the one to be able to say, oh, no. I spoke to your spouses, and this is what I told them, and I'm telling you this now. So that's a great privilege. The number 2 survival is overcoming independence. You have become independent, because just like you said, I think you said, we basically were single parents. and you had to take on new stressors. Just like they had different stressors that they had to adapt to, you had to do the same thing. But now you're going to come back together. In a sense, when we ship our loved ones off, that it forms kind of an attachment injury. That's kind of a technical term. And coming back together again, we want to build up that attachment bond. And so how do we do that? Well, one of the things is becoming interdependent once again. But that takes time. You don't want to rush into that. Some of the other things that you can do is that you can make a priority and schedule dates. Just like when we first started the courtship, how did we get to know each other? Well, we went on dates and we had courtship. And we scheduled things with one another. That's very important to do that when they come back home as well. Now, kids, you have
All grown.
all grown.
All grown.
Anybody at home? Yeah, how many?
One who's learning to drive at 15.
Oh, there's a scary
A
thought.
13-year-old.
Okay,
and a
yeah,
9-year-old.
and a 9-year-old. How about you, sir? No kids. Okay. You want to make sure that there's also scheduled dates for dad with kids as well, because they need to reattach there as well, that bond, build up that bond. All right? And then the last one is the prep weekend. Are any of you familiar with prep? Do you know what prep stands for? Prep is a weekend that's provided by the military. It's free. And it stands for Prevention and Relationship Enhancement Program. And you have a brochure in your packet. I would highly, highly recommend it. It's the weekend thing, yeah. And Jonna, you actually have a little bit more information on that that's a little more updated. You want to?
Well, I just want to let you know there's dates in there, but they're not accurate anymore, especially now because of the extension,
Well, yeah,
obviously.
that was
Yeah.
the dates that they had on it. It was like, okay, I'm going there by myself.
No.
That
So-
would make no sense. So
There's, there's always units coming back and et cetera, so there's, like, they still have, like a weekend going on right now, but it's open to all branches as well. But anyways, the point is that the military year runs from October to September. That's our fiscal year, our financial year. So there is money going to be for next year, we just don't know the dates yet. So as soon as we know, we'll let you know. And Specialist McCain up there, and she's also the contact information in the brochure, is the person you want to contact to find out more information about that. And she's great. So her dad's deployed right now as well, so she kind of is a great person to talk to.
Where are they held, or are they held all over the place?
They are held in different locations, and that will come out further. It used to only be in the Twin Cities, but now they do have some in the northern sites. I don't have the brochure. Oh, actually, I do. Let's see.
One of the things about prep, as a therapist, I use the principles in prep a lot. I'm also certified in prep, so I'll teach prep weekends. In fact, I was able to do a prep weekend with military a couple of weeks ago. What do they have for?
There's actually, it was scheduled in Alexandria for the summer and one in Mankato. So they're going to try to meet the need.
Move around.
Yeah. It used to only be the Twin Cities service, so they're really trying to make it a little bit more available for you and your families. I'm not guaranteeing that will be in Alexandria again, but hopefully.
It will be in outstate though.
Somewhere in
We're hoping that. Yeah.
So then it's a meeting then for the husband and wife?
Yes.
So like a getaway weekend?
Yep,
It's like a getaway weekend. Yeah. If you're familiar with Marriage Encounter, it's along that line.
This
But
weekend
this-
they're at the Hilton in the Bloomington.
Yep.
So it's
Yeah.
a nice hotel. And
Mm-hmm.
And then there's meetings while they go to this then, that they're supposed to go to, or is it just the
Yeah,
weekend?
exactly what do you, yeah.
No, it's a weekend. It's a weekend for the two.
For husband and wife.
For husband and wife.
Or significant other.
And that's right, engaged couples. And you work on things that we're going to talk about a little bit more, communication skills. They have the 4 danger signs within a relationship. What are those? What can we do to prevent those kinds of things? How can we communicate in such a way that not only do I hear what you're saying, but I'm also heard? That's a really big part of prep is communication. So I just would really highly recommend the prep. And you can even go online if you Google prep, you'll find all kinds of information about that. But it's a great weekend and it's free. Take advantage of it. Okay.
And I would just like, it is only for married couples, just to verify that. Because your soldier will actually be put on like travel orders or whatever, so
Mhm.
for you, yeah, so it is just for
Okay. Okay, the third survival. How do you resolve conflict? What do you see in this first picture, in this first scenario? What kinds of things do you see going on there? Arguing. What's his reaction?
He's just blowing it off.
He's blowing it off. Did you know there's a technical term for that? It's called stonewalling. Okay? She's kind of in his face, right? Whereas he's just kind of looking up. He's kind of checked out mentally. That's what stonewalling means. All right, how about in the second scenario? What do you see there? A little different. Another conflict. What's she doing? Pardon?
Walking away.
Walking away. Yeah. She's avoiding. She's withdrawing. She says, I'm out of here. I don't have any more that I wanted to say about that. She put the whole works up. So in resolving conflict, first of all, marital research has found that only 30% of conflict is actually resolvable. 70% of marital conflict is not resolvable. So one of the points up there is how much do we think that this is resolvable? But you know, when I do therapy, one of the first things that I do is I want to know how much buy-in do the couple have, each individual, as to, you know what, I'm a part of this problem. Because a bigger problem would be, you're all the problem, I'm not. That's a bigger problem. If I can get them to a point where one of them will say, well, you know, I'll take responsibility for 3%, that's all I want. I'm not really looking for what percent are you culpable here, but do you think you have some effect on this problem? When you get to that point, that's getting to first base, okay, to use a baseball analogy. Another thing that we find is understanding that your partner, thank you, that your partner really isn't there trying to hurt you. It might be more that they are hurting themselves or they're frustrated, that they can't get their point across. And so sometimes they get into an argument about the argument. Okay? So it isn't that they're trying to stick it to you, they're just really frustrated and trying to get their point across. So we'll spend some time with that. Did you know that because conflict, by and large, is not completely resolvable? In other words, instead of doing this kind of stuff, where you're banging heads, what you need to be doing is finding a way that you can do more of this. And in that way, conflict becomes something that really can strengthen your relationship. The other thing that I find is often people think that their conflict is this big. And then we sit down in my office and we go through it, and we find out the conflict's really only this big. Well, which would you rather tackle? Something that's this big or something that's this big? When we get to that point, you know, again, we've made a lot of progress. And can we go from this banging heads to can we come to a place where we work together? Sometimes we'll have a conflict. I do a fair number of marriage retreats, marriage seminars. And I find couples who have been married for 40, 50, even 60 years, and I'll ask them, is there some conflict in your marriage that has always been there, almost from day one? And I remember one couple in particular, been married about 60 years, and they didn't even hesitate to say, absolutely. And some of those conflicts are really small, like he squeezes the toothpaste wrong, you know, or he can't put the toilet paper on right, you know? And those are things that they just are always in conflict about, but they still survive. So ask yourself and each other, is this problem really solvable, or is this something that we're going to have a discussion on for a long time? Can we agree to disagree? And in the long run, 5 years from now, is this really going to be worth it? Think before you speak. You know, the good Lord gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Maybe we should use them in that same ratio. Maybe there's a hint there about that. I don't know. Avoid criticism. Researcher John Gottman, marriage researcher John Gottman, says that criticism is the #1 horseman. He calls it the marriage horseman of the apocalypse of marriage. Okay? Criticism. So instead of criticizing, well, what's different between criticism and complaint? A complaint is, gosh, you know, I thought you were going to take the garbage out. As opposed to criticism, if you weren't such a slob and weren't so lazy, you'd have the garbage out by now. A little bit of difference there. So we want to avoid that criticism. The I statements and the you statements, that's really a foundational thing in prep. Do you come from my position? Do you come from I or you? Okay? When we say you, we tend to attack. So we want to come from my position. And then the classic problem solving is brainstorming and evaluating options, and select a solution, and then you make adjustments as is necessary. Okay? Yeah.
So the next survival skill we're going to talk about is how to develop healthy coping skills. And the question up there is, what do you do when you're overwhelmed? So is anyone overwhelmed? All right, so I just kind of want to hear a little bit from you. What are some feelings that you're feeling right now? Anybody?
Just getting tired.
Tired, exhausted.
Yeah, good night's sleep would be really nice. A full night's sleep.
Wondering if it's ever going to be in, or is it going to stay home again?
So kind of hopeless.
Wondering if the day's ever going to come.
Yeah. So I guess my main thing is that it's going to be really healthy for you to be aware of your feelings. And when you have it, feelings are always okay. They're always okay. If you're feeling angry, if you're feeling tired, if you're feeling overwhelmed, that's what we do with those feelings. And right now it could be really easy to put a lot of our feelings on our soldiers because we're still, like, they're still our partner, even if they're gone. But what are some other ways we can cope with them? And obviously there's negative ways we can cope with what we're feeling and positive ways. So we're just going to kind of brainstorm some ideas together. So what are some negative coping strategies that we tend to do when we're feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, tired?
Get upset for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm. Upset. So easily irritated. And our emotions are pretty, I mean, I'm not in your scenario right now, but your emotions, I'm guessing, are pretty raw.
Angry.
Angry.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? I'll write mine up. Chocolate. I like to eat it when I'm stressed out. It was my companion while my husband was deployed. Anything else? We do it kind of negative. You know, there's
small things set you off easier.
Just edgy. So one of the things that just being in the National Guard and not necessarily active duty is, you know, we're not necessarily around a lot of families who are going through the same situation. And sorry, I hate to point this out, but you are obviously a unique situation where there's not a lot of people can relate to having their wife deployed.
Right.
So there can be this sense of isolation, and we can be isolated. We can avoid other people pretty easily because not a lot of people know what we're going through in the National Guard. So
we're, like you said, they just don't get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's one of the things we can do is we can just stay isolated. We can just avoid people in general. We can not use all the resources that we're trying to tell you that are out there today. So that's one thing we want you to know, that there are some positive ways to cope through this. So what are some positive ways you have been trying to cope with what's going on? Or you can?
Remodeling my house.
Oh, awesome. Remodeling. So kind of keep
extra busy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You do anything?
Going through lots of papers and shredding a lot of old stuff.
Okay, so
Cleaning
kind
out
of
the
reorganizing.
Sorting out the file cabinets. Called him and says, "Do you need this?" Or when he called me, I said, "Is this something that you're attached to?" And he said, "Not particularly." I said, "It's out of here."
Mm-hmm. So just kind of, in a way, that's a way of, everything's chaotic that's going on outside of you right now. So maybe that's just a way of like having that piece of your life not be chaotic.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people have been that way for a long time.
So
I'm upset by that shredder. This is fun.
It might burn out if I try it right now.
Oh, it's nothing to do a green bag full every day.
So when they come home too, it's just you know, when you have those arguments that you know, it was simply that he did pick up his shirt, and then within 5 minutes, everything bad that ever happened in your relationship is in that argument. So we just like to say a positive way of dealing with that is identifying the real stressor. Were you stressed out today, or even now when they're like, you know what, I didn't mean to overload you with all the bills or everything that's going on here. I'm just stressed out. You know, so just letting them know where you're coming from. And exercise, sports, you guys sound like you have some healthy options to turn to, so it's just turning to those and turning to resources in the community as well. And since we only have a few minutes, I'm just going to let you know that we just want to normalize it as much as possible. That's okay to seek help. If you are feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling depressed, if your kids are dealing with like poor performance in school or just acting out, like just there's parent educators here today. There's therapists. There's troop and family counseling is one of the services. There's chaplains. There's us today. Even if you want to talk to us after this class, please don't hesitate to seek us out. And I guess last but not least, I just want to let you know that we are both so thankful for what you and your families are going through, and we really admire you and you are heroes. So thank you.